All right, folks, here we go. We are going to be looking at some dominant seventh chords, which is a new topic for us. And we're going to be looking at how to build these, how they relate to triads, which we already know. So the first thing that we want to do is just take a peek at exactly what they are. So we see that they have the word chord in them, and so when we see chord, the only real type of chords we know are triads, right? A triad is a three-note chord. So let's look at just a simple triad. So we're going to build one here on G. We're going to build a G triad. So I've got G as my root, which is the lowest note. Third above that is going to be B, and then a third above that is going to be, whoops, not C, it's going to be D. So I've got a three-note chord or a three-note triad here, G, B, D. Root is G, third is B, fifth is D. And this happens to be a G major triad because it's a major third from G to B natural, and it's a perfect fifth from G to D. So that's a major triad. Now, if I want to make this a seventh chord, I have to just follow the pattern. So we had root, then we had the third, then we had the fifth. And if I want it to be a seventh, I'm going to add another note, a third above my highest one so far, because they've all been thirds so far, right? G to B, and then B to D. So now I need to add another third, D to F, and voila, now I have what's called a seventh chord. So the term seventh sort of is a strange thing. It doesn't mean that we have 7 different notes in the chord. It's just a continuation. Root, third, fifth is D, F is the seventh of the chord because F is 7 away from G. It's an interval of a seventh away from G. So that's really, as far as the most simple way to think about it, how we have a seventh chord. That's what's called a seventh chord. Now, we need this to be a dominant seventh chord, and there are a few different ways to think about this one. The chord I built happens to be a dominant seventh chord. I've got root, third, fifth, and we said that the way these are, that makes it a major triad. So all dominant seventh chords have to be built on a major triad. So if I had made this, for instance, B flat, like that, this is no longer a dominant seventh chord because my triad, G, B flat, D, is not major. So it can only be with a major triad. So I'm going to go ahead and make that B flat back into a B natural, and now I'm back to having a major triad, which with this kind of seventh makes it dominant. And the kind of seventh I have here, if we think about when we learned intervals, is from G, the root note, to F, the seventh, is a minor seventh. G to F natural makes a minor seventh. F sharp would have been a major seventh because that's the kind of F that we would have in the key of G major, right? So the key signature of G major is 1 sharp, and that sharp is F sharp. So this chord looks like something I might find in G major. But the interesting thing about dominant seventh chords is that they aren't the kind of chord we would get in the major key that the chord is built on. So we're expecting here, I'm in G, so I should have F sharps. But a dominant seventh chord does not work like that. So that's why when we go back to what I had before, which was an F natural, we know that note doesn't really fit in the key of G major. And so that sort of gives us a hint into another thing we can know about dominant seventh chords. It's that they don't show up exactly where we think they're going to in a key. So this is my G dominant seventh chord, or we can just call it G7. Let's talk a little bit about another way to think about it that's not just purely based on intervals. We can use also how these chords are going to occur in a different key. So to do that, let's pick a different key as those notes go away. And I'm going to pick the key of B flat. I'm going to pick the key B flat. So I'm just changing some note values here just for fun. So let's think about B flat. There's B flat. The other important word here for us is dominant. And this is sort of a word that in music has a few different meanings. And one of the important meanings for dominant is actually that it happens on the 5th degree of the scale. That's sort of dominant is a code word for that. So when we see dominant, we want to think it's happening on the 5th degree of a scale. So I need to say if I'm in B flat, and let me just go ahead and write B flat here for us so that we can just remember where we are. And of course now I have to go in and erase all these other crazy things. That's just how it goes. Let me get rid of that, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to make that disappear. Okay, cool. So if I'm in B flat, I need to get myself to the 5th note of the B flat major scale because that's what we said the word dominant means. It means it happens on 5. So if I'm in B flat, that means B flat is 1. So the 2nd note of a B flat major scale is C. So there's a C, moving right along. The 3rd note would be D. So far I have B flat, C, D. And I know that the 4th note is actually going to be E flat because I know my key signature for B flat major is B flat and E flat. And so far so good. I've got 4 notes, B flat, C, D, E flat. And that takes me to the 5th note of the scale, which we just said is sort of code for dominant. And I'm going to switch here to this whole note so that it stands out. And so that 5th note here is going to be an F. So I'm 5 notes up. I've got B flat, I've got C, I've got D, I've got E flat, and I've got F. And that's going to be the 5th note of the scale, or the dominant note. And so what's going to happen is it's on F here that we're going to build our dominant 7th chord. And the real fun thing about this, and the fun thing about using chords in keys in general, is that we can just use the notes from the key. So I'm going to start and just build a triad on F, and I'm going to only use notes from the key of B flat. We said B flat has a B flat and an E flat, and everything else is a natural note. So here, above F, I can go up and get my 3rd, which is A, and I know I have A naturals in this key because it's not B flat or E flat. And then I need a 3rd above that, which is C. So now I've got root, 3rd, 5th, get up there, root, 3rd, well, whatever, root, 3rd, 5th, there we go, in the key of B flat on F, which is the dominant, and this is an F major triad. And we said if I have a major triad, I can build a dominant 7th. So what we're going to do now is we need to add a 7th to this chord. I've got root, 3rd, 5th, right? I've got F, I've got A, I've got C. So the note that's going to be a type of 7th here is a type of E, right? But it's not going to be E natural because the kind of E I have in this scale is E flat, right? So I'm going to make this an E flat. And let's see if we've filled all our parameters here. We know that a 7th chord is going to have 4 different notes. It's going to have, let's get rid of that flat. It's going to have a root, which is F. It's going to have a 3rd, which is A. It's going to have a 5th, which is C. And it's going to have a 7th, which in this case is E, and E flat specifically. So that's pretty good. We also know that we said the dominant 7th chord, the kind of 7th it'll have, is a minor 7th. And if I look from F to E flat, from F to E flat is a minor 7th. because above F, a major seventh would be E natural. So a minor seventh, 1/2 step below, is E flat. But I don't necessarily have to trust only that way of thinking about it. I can also say, I know that dominant means 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It means the 5th note in a scale. So I said if I'm in B flat, I can walk up B flat, C, D, E flat, F. And if I build a 7th chord on that note and use only notes from this scale, F is in this scale, A is in this scale, C is in this scale, and the kind of E I get in this scale is E flat. So if I follow those parameters, I will get a dominant 7th chord. And that's exactly what happened. All right, so let's do another one of these. We're gonna do one, maybe say goodbye to our friends in B flat. We're gonna do one in D major. So I'm gonna just write D, and there we go. So let's go the way where we're gonna build the scale to start. So here we go. D major is gonna start on D. So there's D. The next note up is gonna be E natural. And I know this because I've thought about the key signature for D major, which is 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So that helps me know that I've got D, E, and I now need an F sharp to come next. And what do you know? I've got one right there. F sharp and C sharp are the only accidentals in this scale, so the next note is just going to be G natural. So I've got D, E, F sharp, G, and that's 4 notes. So the next note is number 5, and again I'm just switching, making it a whole note so that it looks different. And the 5th note here, oopsie, that's a G, is A. D, E, F sharp, G, A. So we know that dominant means 5, so I counted 5 and I got to A. I am sitting pretty, things are good. So now I know I can use just notes from this scale and build a chord on A, the 5th scale degree or the 5th note in the D major scale, and I'm going to get a dominant 7th chord. So first I have to find the triad, and it's going to be an A triad. And in D major, I need a C sharp, right? Because the key signature is F sharp, C sharp. So that's good. I've got E natural, which we saw over on the left there. So here comes E natural. And there's an A major triad, A, C sharp, E. And the last thing we said is if I have my root, I have my 3rd, I have my 5th, I can just add another note on top of that. I can add another 3rd on top. So a 3rd above E is a G, and I know that the kind of G that I get in D major is G natural. So there it is. So by just using the notes from D major, I was able to make this dominant 7th chord. It's an A dominant 7th chord, which is the kind of dominant 7th chord we get in D major because it's on the 5th note of the scale. D, E, F sharp, G, A. Now if I want to test it, I can go and check the interval. So from A 7th up is a type of G, so that's good. And I can say a major 7th above A would have been G sharp, but there's no G sharp in D major, so the minor 7th above A would be G natural. And that's how you make a dominant 7th chord in a key.